We're putting the band back together.
Forget it. No way.
We're on a mission from God.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention?
Oh, this is gonna be fun. We can stay up late, swapping manly stories, and in the morning, I'm making waffles.
Because people have got to know whether or not their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir,
go ahead.
I can see Russia from my house.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
We like drink box water bottles.
No, a proof is a proof. What kind of a proof? It's a proof.
Here come the flag. Champions, 1989. Canadians win the Stanley Cup. El Presidente, El Perfecto.
Sidney Crosby, the golden goal! And the Blue Jays have repeated as World Series champions. Touch 'em all, Joe. You'll never hit a bigger home run in your life.
Welcome to the Edge of TomFoolery.
I have these notes, so I gotta say I'm just fired up to be here today. Pretty cool. Wow!
Hey, what's going on, my friends? It's Bruce Mackey, and this is the Edge of TomFoolery. We talk sports, we talk politics, we talk music, and all that other tomfoolery. Speaking of Tom, it's the Earl of Bob himself, Mr. Bobby Morris. How are you, Bobby?
Hey, Bruce, doing well. You?
I'm fine. Have you, like I told my wife, today was like the perfect day.
Mm-hmm.
I watched the sports. I watched church. The sun was shining. It was just, it couldn't have gotten any better than that. Like the sun is shining. You kind of forget about this COVID thing.
Weather's picked right up. Oh yeah. COVID's in the back of your mind.
And someone who is from a province that said they would never, ever lock down ever again. But I've heard that Alberta may have locked down last week. Stevie Heights with us. How are you, buddy?
I'm good. Shockingly, Alberta sometimes thinks it does things a little better than everyone else, and it can come back to haunt us here and there. So, if nothing, we're confident, Brucey. I'll tell you.
Oh, I know. You guys are our Texas, and we love you for it. We love you for it. So,
thank you.
Are they going to string Kenny up though? Are they getting angry with him? Are the Notley folks getting a little upset, or?
Oh, we're not worried about her. It's his own people we're worried about. That's if the conservatives here.
Very true.
Yeah. You have really conservative and super conservative Alberta. Those are the only options you've got, right?
Oh, there you go. Well, listen, on the show tonight, we have got a great guest lined up. We've got Mr. Mark Osborne.
Toronto is here to play. Osborne got the cross check up immediately on Delorme, up around his left ear. And they didn't waste any time dropping the glove.
Pushaliski from center. Pass in front, and Osborne scores! Osborne gets the goal for the Maple Leafs to make it 5-3.
14 seasons in the NHL, 919 games, total of 531 points. Please welcome to the show, Mark Osborne. How are you, Mark?
Hey guys, I'm doing great, and I got to tell you, hearing that and just think, how in the world did these guys get that audio? I am equally impressed. And
they don't pay us the big bucks for nothing, right? So
here I thought this was just going to be a real simple thing, but man, you guys are top shelf.
Well, when you look at us, we look simple. We really do. But
yes.
Oh, well, thanks for being a part of things. And we've had a friendship that's gone back many years. And in your honor tonight, I am wearing an LA Kings jersey, and you are working for the Kings. And actually, we've got to leave the podcast a little early because you're actually working, and we're going to talk about that.
Yep.
Talk about.
I'm thoroughly impressed. And if I look, I got to say that's got to be a former Belleville Bull. That's got to be Michael Love. Who,
yes, it is.
Games with us over the course of these last couple of years, and I know you guys all do Belleville proud, right? Like,
oh yeah.
So
actually, Steve's from a little place called Ross Moore, and we call him a Ross Moron. So
yeah. I'm like the Samaria of the Quinte region. Yeah. So I don't really fit anywhere.
This is true. So we want to talk a little bit about your history, and we want to talk hockey. I mean, we're in playoffs. You know, the playoffs are just starting off. So, talking about your junior career, you played in Niagara Falls for the Niagara Falls Flyers, played in the OHL. I think was it called the OHA back in those days?
It was the OHA, yeah, back then, yeah.
Yeah. Who were some of the guys that you played with? Who were some of your teammates back then?
Well, pretty close to where you guys are at in Belleville, and I know you hate the Peterborough Petes, but there was a fellow on our team by the name of Steve Larmer.
Yeah.
So he's, Larms is from that area. Steve Ludzik, Daryl Evans, Kevin McClellan, Paul Gillis. Those were, a handful of the guys that obviously went on to play in the National Hockey League, and yeah, the old Niagara Falls Flyers, who obviously a few years after I left junior hockey and turned pro, they ended up moving to North Bay.
Okay.
And then eventually North Bay moved to Saginaw.
That's
So
right.
how's that for me being on top of my
You
OA?
look at that. That's very good.
Wow.
Who is your coach in Niagara Falls?
It was Bert Templeton.
Oh, wow.
So Bert was only with us for 1 year. And but we went all the way to the OHL finals to Peterborough. We're up 3-1. And I know when you had Laurie Boschman on, previously, I think you were talking about his Memorial Cup and that they had lost to Peterborough. Well, that was the team actually that we had lost to in the OHL finals. We were up 3-1. They came back and won the next 3 games, and Gary Green was their coach.
Oh man! If you'd have beat Peterborough, you'd probably beat Boschy, wouldn't you?
Well, I'd like to think so. I'd like to think so. But nonetheless, I mean that's a long time ago. I mean, we're dating ourselves now. My goodness, junior hockey back in 1978. That was my first year in junior. So.
Oh man, we got so you played 3 years in the OHL, and my question is, the OHL didn't even play this year. So how do you think this year is going to pan out for the amateur scouts and for the professional scouts in years to come, especially with the OHL when guys haven't played for the entire year?
Yeah, you know what? It is such an unusual thing, right? That's occurred. The Quebec League played, the Western Hockey League played, a lot of the junior leagues in the United States have played. Same thing with Europe. I mean, I think the OHL was probably the only league that did not have guys playing. And so not being on the amateur side of scouting, because I am on the pro side, but I know, and I've read some of the things regarding, this upcoming draft. I mean, it's still a level playing field for all the NHL teams. You just hopefully have got information on these guys from previous. And I don't know what's going to happen with those kids, right, that are draft eligible that missed an entire year from the Ontario Hockey League. I think we did see some of them maybe at the World Juniors. So, that's, a most unusual situation, but, we'll leave it to the amateur department and we'll blame them if it doesn't work.
Do the amateur and the pro scouts, do they get along, or is it kind of like, the Samaria thing again?
Why did you ask that? Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, but there's always this ongoing a little bit of the pro guys are really easygoing, the amateurs.
Saying it from a pro guy, right?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what it is about them, whether it's a competitive thing. I think they do take a lot of criticism because of, let's face it, it's not an easy thing to do to be able to project 17, 18-year-old players and hopefully that you get it right. I mean, there's so many factors that are involved in scouting players, and 3 years down the road, we picked Quinton Byfield this year as the second pick, not without some criticism because, I've heard it from a bunch of friends about the German boy up the road from you guys in Ottawa, right? Like Stutzel.
Jimmy.
Well, Stutzel was ready to play, and he's a great player, but you can't judge a draft after 1 year or 2 years, and sometimes it takes 3 to 4 years before you really get the depth of a player and their potential upside. So that's what we're hoping for, obviously, with QB. Otherwise, we are blaming the amateurs.
There you go, Stevie. You got a question?
Yeah, I was gonna say we did some digging on you. Found out now you went 46 overall. Now that's a 3rd round pick. Now thanks to the Kraken, you probably would be a 1st rounder now because of 46, right? So just some perspective on what 46 overall means now, right? So
yeah, you make me feel better. I mean, I went from the 1st round to the 2nd round pick. Because back then, I was drafted the first year out of expansion, right? So they went from the original 6 to 12 teams. No.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, not quite.
There were 21 teams at that time. So,
There you go.
Yeah, I mean,
Did you go to the draft?
I did not go to the draft. I know there were a bunch of my peers that played on the Flyers that were represented by Gus Badali, where Darrell Evans and Larmer and Steve Ludzik, they all went to Montreal for the draft. But no, I mean, it was just, I think it was a new type of thing where players started to go. And now, I mean, it's just you're going, right? Especially if you're, pretty sure that you're going to get drafted. But no, it was wait by the rotary phone, and and wait.
Is that how you heard? By the phone?
Yeah, that's how you heard. I mean, I got a phone call, right after obviously that third round from our general manager. It may have been in the early afternoon for all I can remember, when the draft was already over. But it was way different back then, and getting the news of where you got picked and all that kind of stuff.
We heard a story last week. We interviewed Chico Resch, and he said he was out delivering mail, and he got a call that he got traded from Montreal.
Yeah.
And he said that was the way, and then he finished my route. So that's the way it was.
Yeah, and I take myself back to it was 1980 when I was drafted. So we're now, if I do my math correctly, it's 41 years ago, pretty much.
Wow.
And like today, you kind of, I mean, you've got the draft show, you've got all these projections on who's going where. They almost have it nailed down to some degree. There's always some surprises, but I mean, back in our generation, it was way different, and you didn't even know if you were going to get drafted. You hoped to get drafted. It seemed like you were going to get drafted. And I remember picking up that phone. It was Jimmy Devellano.
Oh, wow.
No, that was when he traded me. This was the general manager at the time was Ted Lindsay, but I got that phone call and was told that the Red Wings had picked me up, and I got to tell you guys, I was a little bit disappointed, to be honest.
Did you want to go to Montreal?
No, I wouldn't have minded that at all. But the only thing I remembered about being watching the Red Wings was it wasn't a pretty city back then. The Maple Leaf bus, when I was watching Leaf hockey in the 70s, got shot at outside the Detroit Olympia, and they weren't a very good hockey club. And I thought, oh man, could I not have got a little bit farther and a little bit nicer or whatever? But that was a thrill to be drafted, first of all, and then it was a perfect scenario for me to be part of the Red Wings and go to a team that needed a little infusion of some youth, because things have gotten run into the ground a little bit by the time the late 70s came around in Detroit.
And you get to Detroit, you make it your first year there, and you play, and you led the team in scoring. You had 67 points in 80 games. And when I went to look, I thought that 67 points in 80 games, that's impressive. That's really impressive.
Oh, thanks, Bruce. I mean, yeah. I mean, you're impressed. I was shocked. Like, how about that way? Because I mean, you got to understand this, and we talked a little bit about junior hockey, where I played Niagara Falls. I was not even drafted into junior hockey. I was one of those guys that got a letter in the mail and we need some extra players to be a part of training camp. And I was fully anticipating to just go there for the experience. And I got a letter in the mail that summer. I got a training manual because Bert Templeton was crazy about fitness. I decided, what the heck, I might as well give myself an opportunity and do what's required, right? You do the off ice, and I could skip pretty good, right? And for whatever reason, Bert was kind of, I remember when we were doing the off ice conditioning portion of it, where you had to do a bunch of things, and skipping was one of it. He kind of like, how many did you do in 1 minute and all that kind of stuff, right? But that was part of me eventually making that team as a walk-on, and so the thoughts of even having an NHL career, or even thinking about that, was not even a part of the equation for me. It came very quickly, and so to go from being a walk-on in junior to getting drafted by the Red Wings, and then leading their team in scoring as a 20-year-old, as a rookie, that was just like this. Things were moving very quickly, and it was just a surprising thing, but it was pretty cool.
That's awesome. And 67 points in 80 games, that'll get you into the discussion, for Calder Cup. But the people that came in that year in the Calder year, your rookie year, you had some big shoes there. There was Dale Howardchuck and others, eh?
Yeah. And I mean, I may have gotten one vote from one of the beat writers when it came to all of that voting and stuff, but it was yeah. I mean, I played with a journeyman by the name of Walt McKechnie. He was my centerman, and he just told me to go up and down the wing. I'll get you the puck, shoot the puck. You got a good shot. Growing up, my dad tried to tell me, just try to be like Bob Gainey, be responsible away from the puck. And that's really what I tried to do. And that's what got me into junior. I prided myself on working and being responsible away from the puck. And I knew I could shoot the puck and, provided, depending on who you were put as line mates, right? Like, I mean, I played on some scoring lines throughout my NHL career. And then, I kind of transitioned into being a checking line near the end of my career. So I think the secret to, anyone's success is to make sure you don't give them too many goals, right? So score around the 20 goal mark, and then because if you score more, they're going to want it, right? So you kind of be a little bit modest with your production.
Speaking of which, I don't know if you heard our interview with, I wanted to play a clip of it. We interviewed Chico Resch last week, and this is part of what he had to say.
I don't know how to put this, but I'm kind of a big deal.
Really?
People know me.
No, it wasn't Chico. That wasn't Chico. Listen, you were traded after you played a couple seasons in Detroit. You get traded to New York. How did you hear about that? You were traded for Ron Duguay, who's a pretty popular guy at the time. And talk about that trade and what it was like to go to New York.
Well, first of all, I mean, you talked about me leading the team and scoring my first year, and I got named to Team Canada, went there and played in the World Championships over in Finland. And then while I was over in Finland, I got up out of my chair and I started to feel really dizzy, and I felt like I was going to pass out. And that entire summer, I just did not feel good. And so coming off that season, surprising season of leading the team in scoring, I go into that second year. Mike Ilitch buys the team, by the way, that summer. And so now I go into my second year and I'm just not 100%. I go through that, second season. I may have scored, 19 goals that year, down from my 26th, the rookie season, but I still played every game, but I just did not feel good. I just did not feel 100%. And next thing you know, just after the draft, I get a phone call from Jimmy Devellano. And here I thought Jimmy was calling me to tell me about this kid they drafted the 4th overall. Mark, this is Jimmy D. And we picked this. We think he's going to be a pretty good player. Steve Yzerman. Steve Yzerman. He goes, but Mark, we've made a deal and you're involved. So it was like, 2 years of being a young player there, and all of a sudden, Jimmy made the trade, and Ron Duguay was part of it. It was a 6-player trade, and yeah, the summer of 1983, I was heading to New York Rangers, and yet, those were, I spent 5 years in New York, and I loved my time in New York. I mean, it was the heyday, and you had Chico Resch on. I mean, it was the Islanders winning 4 Stanley Cups in a row. It was it's like an original 6 rivalry between the Leafs and the Canadiens, the Rangers and Islanders, and a vibrant city, an original 6 team. I thoroughly enjoyed my time in New York.
And then you get traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs for a guy named Jeff Jackson. Is that correct? Is it the Jeff Jackson that we know from Hockey Ministries?
No, it's not. It's not him, but we had gone to the Stanley Cup semifinals, and I hate to bring this up again, but it was 1986, and Patrick Waugh stood on his head. We lost to the Canadiens in those semifinals. And then I got off to a real good start the following year. I think I scored 10 goals in the first 18 games. And then we were in New Jersey, having our pregame meal, getting ready to play the Devils, and somebody notified me there was a phone call for me, and I went and picked up the phone in the hotel, and it was a pastor friend of my family's to tell me that my dad had just passed away.
Oh wow!
And it was like, oh my goodness, like it was, totally unexpected. And I mean, I'm not afraid to share it, but he took his life. And I mean, it was like the most devastating thing that anyone would go through in a family is to lose their dad and lose their dad in which in the way in which he took his life. But after that, I mean, it was tough to come back and to play and leave my mom and do all that stuff. But in a March morning, right on the trade deadline, I get a phone call from Phil Esposito. He was our general manager in New York at the time. And he says, I've traded to the Maple Leafs. And so he really did me a favor.
Yeah.
Because he knew that, what had transpired with our family. And my mom was here in Toronto. And so he says, yeah, the Leafs have been calling about you and this, that, and the other. And so, yeah, in a most unusual, indirect way, a dream came true, being a Southern Ontario boy, getting traded to the Maple Leafs, a team that, you grew up watching on Hockey Night in Canada. And you remember the first game that your dad took you to on the subway at Church and Carleton, and the smells and just, and now to be a Toronto Maple Leaf was quite a thrill.
Wow. Stevie, you got a question there?
That's cool. Yeah. I was going to say that the coach at that time was John Brophy. Now, what was it like to play for him?
Yeah, John was our coach. Brof was a passionate guy. He, I mean, he's the one who, if you've seen, and I'm sure you've all seen the movie Slapshot, but he's portrayed in Slapshot.
Yeah.
And I mean, and that was the old days of TomFoolery, right? Like those were crazy days, but Brof hated to lose. And, you got to remember, we grew up, watching the Broad Street Bullies, and the game was just different, entirely different than it is today. But, it was like the Cold War, teams would load up on tough guys, right? And whether, you were in Detroit and you had Probert and Kocher, or you had to go into Philadelphia and there was, Dave Brown and Rick Tocchet. I mean, it was just a whole different generation. I know that, you talked about Brof, and, Brof was good to play for us. I mean, it wasn't a great time for Leaf hockey in some regards. It was nearing the end of Harold's life, and there was, I think, a little bit of a hiccup for the Leafs, during the mid 80s and late 80s, until Cliff Fletcher came along. But hey, he put Eddie Olchuk and Gary Lehman and myself together. We had a couple of good years, had a lot of fun together, scored some goals. I mean, Gary scored 50. And
you set him up on all of those, right?
Oh yeah, well, 49. I think
there you go.
49 of my 50 assists that year with Gary.
That's good.
Yeah.
Bobby, you got a question for Mark?
Mark, now you were traded to the Jets in 1990, and my question is a two-parter. First, what was your experience like in Winnipeg, and is it true Laurie Boschman wore fur coats?
Oh yeah, well, there you go. So again, why do you guys keep on asking me about all the times I've been traded? So the Red Wings to the Rangers to the Leafs, now over to Winnipeg, but it was with Eddie Olchuk.
Yeah.
And it was Floyd Smith was our general manager here with the Maple Leafs at the time. And I remember I'm in the same house that I was, back when I played. This was just getting ready to sit down and have my pregame meal when the phone rang, and it was Floyd Smith, and had informed me that, we've traded you to the Winnipeg Jets. Eddie Olchuk, by the way, was at the hospital. His wife was in labor with their first son. That's where he found out, when Diane was pushing and he was we were packing. So Diane was pushing, we were packing, we were heading to Winnipeg.
Oh, wow.
And, that was, I got to say, that was really a disappointing phone call. I mean, nobody likes to get traded because, I mean, you're there, you're committed. I know some guys asked to get traded, but after we had a real good season as a line and then got off to not a very good start as a team, I mean, they made changes and Eddie and went to Winnipeg. And I didn't start off on a very good note there because I got misquoted and I talked about the desolate cold and they thought I said the desolate hole. So I was wondering why I got booed when I stepped on the ice, but no, Winnipeg's a great family environment. They love their hockey there. It was not very, I was not there. We were not there for maybe a dozen games when Brendan Shanahan slashed me in Winnipeg and broke my thumb. And so I missed the next 2 months. So my start in Winnipeg wasn't that great. And then, the following year, it was just okay. And I really began to think that, I'm not getting used the way I was, or even though Eddie and I were still playing together, it just didn't seem like a good fit in Winnipeg. And then trade deadline day of 1992, we were out having lunch, and hockey players, they lead you to believe that they don't think about trade deadline, but they do.
Oh, they do. Yeah,
So
they do.
we went to a restaurant. There was Randy Carlisle, Phil Housley, Thomas Steen, myself, Bob Asenza. So we went and then we looked at the watch and said, "Hey, it's 2:00. It's over. We didn't get traded." One of those. I went down to where we lived in downtown Winnipeg and walked, came up the hallway of the condo we were in, and my wife's down at the end of the hallway, and she's got this look on her face, and it was like one of those looks like somebody died. That was the kind of look. I go, "Oh no, like what happened?" She goes, "You're never gonna believe it." I go, "What?" She goes, "We're traded." So we were just celebrating we never got traded. But it was like obviously near the end of the trade deadline, and so I didn't know. So they must have called the house, right? You didn't have cell phones back then. Yeah. And she says, "You're not going to believe it. We've been traded back to the Maple Leafs." Right? And I'm like, "Oh, you got to be kidding me." I said, "Well, you know what? They made a mistake the first time, so let's go make it right here."
That's right.
You know what? Yeah, we got to go back and play for Pat Burns, and that was the beginning of the passion returning in the early '90s to Toronto. So those were a fun few years here for sure.
And you didn't answer so did Boschy, did he have fur coats?
Oh yeah. You know what? So I heard about this guy, Laurie Boschman, right? And I know we'll get to Faith in a little bit, but I knew that Bosch had gotten kicked out of Toronto because of his faith, and he was now in Winnipeg and everything like that. And I know Winnipeg's cold, but I remember going in between where the families would meet you after games. There'd be the visitors and there'd be the home team, and everybody would kind of congregate together. And I was kind of asking everybody, like, who's that guy over there? Like, he's got the fur coat down to his ankles. Like, and then it dawned on me. I go, now I know why his mom named him Lori. I go, Bosch, that is embarrassing. That is really embarrassing to be a guy wearing a fur coat down to your ankles.
You think he still has it?
I don't know. I thought maybe you guys would have asked him about that.
Yeah, we asked him lots of questions. We didn't ask him that. Well, we should have asked him that.
Kept it. Knowing him, he would have sold it for a profit.
Listen, you met your wife when you were in New York, and how many years you been married now?
I better get this right, eh? It's going to be 33 years this July.
Awesome. And your wife was an actress in the movies, and
yeah, she was an actress in the movies. Little did I know when we had first, got introduced, via a friend, because we didn't really meet. But I know I can go on and on about this, but she had, she began her movie career back in 1979. She got cast and got the part in Urban Cowboy with John Travolta. So that was the start of her her movie career. And, we met through a mutual friend of ours who, this girl, Terry Soreko, she was a publicist for CBS, but she wrote for the Ranger magazine. When you would go to a game, you would get the program. And so she did an article on me. She, we had gone to the Stanley Cup, semifinals, and then we started the next year, and there was a bunch of injuries and this, that, and the other. And while she was interviewing me, she kind of opened the door a little bit to, ask me how I was able to deal with adversity in the game. And that kind of gave me the opportunity to share just a little bit about my faith, of how I handle things away from the rink. And she became, kind of a little bit curious about that, and said, "What do you mean? What do you mean you have this faith? I mean, how can you be a Christian and be a hockey player?" Right? Like, because I mean, that was just kind of, whatever, that comment that she had made. So I could tell that she was kind of interested. I told her a little bit about my my summer experiences I had with Hockey Ministries, what Don Lismer and some of the other guys in the game mean to me, and how they encourage me in my personal faith. And she goes, "I'd love to do a deeper story about that." And so I thought, great. I shared my faith with her. Now she wants to know more, and I'll be able to tell her exactly how I came to faith, and and hope that that'll be a good thing. Well, she was so curious, I ended up giving her a book by C.S. Lewis called Mere Christianity. And then I didn't see Terry in the press box because I was still hurt for a number of weeks. And then she came back, and I go, "Terry, hey, where have you been?" She goes, "Well, I was on a publicity tour because I worked for CBS, and I had met somebody just like you." I'm going, "Somebody just like you?" Well, it ended up being who she introduced me to, Madeline. And said that Madeline had told her the same thing on this publicity tour that they were on for CBS. She was just a part of a miniseries called If Tomorrow Comes, based on a Sidney Sheldon book with Tom Berenger. And so, and Liam Neeson was in it. And so Madeline was the star of that. And that's really, she showed me a picture of Madeline. She was on the cover of TV Guide because it was upcoming, getting ready to launch on CBS. And I go, she's beautiful. And she goes, "You guys need to meet." I looked at the picture, and I was like 24 at the time. And I'm thinking, we should meet. I go, what am I going to say to her? I got nothing to say to her. She's an actress. She's like, I'm just a hockey player, Canadian hockey player, right? And I go, "Well, what do you want me to do, Terry? Do you want me to call her up?" I go, "I'm not calling her up or whatever." I did the safe thing. I wrote her a letter. Okay. I wrote the letter. That would have been like easy, like send her a text, do an Instagram or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And much to my surprise, I got a beautiful letter back. And we were pen pals for at least 10 months before we ever met.
Wow.
And that was kind of the foundation of our friendship, was through letters. And then we finally had met, and it wasn't too long after we actually physically met that summer we ended up getting engaged and got married the following year. So I know that was a long-winded story, but it was really a God ordained thing in my life for Madeline and I to meet, and it was a result of me simply sharing my faith with a hockey writer in New York. So
that is very, very cool. And I think you pretty much answered your question, didn't you, Steve?
Yeah, I was going to say we were just going to ask about what it's like to live out your faith. And I guess you had mentioned a little bit about, you wanted to share your faith with this person and how you came to faith. So what is a bit of the story of how you did end up coming to faith?
Yeah, so my last name is not Osborne. It's also Povich. my dad changed our name. Pure-blooded Ukrainian. Both sets of grandparents, from the Ukraine, immigrated to Canada after the Second World War. My mom and dad actually met at the Ukrainian Baptist Church in downtown Toronto.
Wow.
Late 50s. And so, I was born and raised in a church going home, and both sets of my grandparents were actually evangelized in the Ukraine under like kind of in secrecy, because there was no real freedom of faith in at that time, not behind the Iron Curtain. And so, while I even, kind of observed the faith of my family and my grandparents and all that kind of stuff, I mean, it did not become something personal to me until I was a 14-year-old. And again, sometimes the Lord works in, through challenges or through tragedy. And my uncle was a Presbyterian minister. He got hit by a car. He was killed. And my aunt came to live with us, and that really bothered me, actually. Just the dealing with the grieving, process of seeing your uncle, who had, 3 younger boys. They may have been in high school at the time, but still, it was not fun. But that really got the ball rolling for me in a spiritual sense, to just start asking myself, like, if something was to happen to me, where would I spend eternity? And because I went to church, or because I had a, somewhat of a belief system, like I believed there was a God, but I knew deep down in my heart that I wasn't, a real believer, I guess. And the funny thing is, that following fall, after my uncle had passed away in January, there was a guy from Billy Graham that came and spoke at my church, John Wesley White. I mean, you may have been familiar with who John was, but I was fascinated by Billy Graham as a kid in the 70s, going to seeing football stadiums filled, and delivering a simple message of faith, and all these people walking out of their seats, going down to the front, and inviting, Jesus into their hearts. I got the idea, but the rubber met the road for me that Sunday morning when John spoke. And with tears coming down my face, I wanted to be right with God. Like I really did. I believed in Jesus, and I just, you can't explain it, right, unless you've done it. That the insincerity of your heart when you come to faith, and you just say, Lord, I know I've fallen short. I've made a bunch of mistakes or whatever. I mean, we know that is sin, and yet, Jesus provided you with salvation, right, through his sacrificial death on the cross. And so it made sense to me that morning. And I knew that I was, going to say, hey, I have no idea what life has in store for me, but I believe this is truth. And if you are who you say you are, then come into my heart and make me the person you want me to be. And that was the beginning of my faith journey back in 1975 as a 14-year-old boy.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Bobby, you got a question?
Yeah, Mark, we know today you're a pro scout with the LA Kings. I was wondering, what does being a pro scout look like during a pandemic? It's got to be difficult.
Yeah, it certainly has. I mean, going all the way back to, over a year now, right? I mean, because being a pro scout, I mean, we would be, and I would, be going to at least 4 or 5 games a week. I cover the Atlantic Division. So there's 4 of us at the NHL level, and we all have to watch our teams play every night. So whether I'm going to Boston, or I'm going to Montreal, which is a pain, or I got to go to Ottawa, like I got to see those teams play every night. Sometimes I have to go to South Florida because
you have to go, eh? Is there good golf down there? Are you allowed to golf in South Florida?
So that's what I'm doing. I'm watching the Atlantic Division teams, and to make a long story short, it's a lot of travel, but I live here in Toronto, so it's easy for me to go to Buffalo, right? See the Leafs here. I mean, anytime there's an Atlantic Division team that comes to Toronto, so I have it really good when it comes to travel. We still do travel a lot, but our primary focus is for trades and free agency. And so, right now during the pandemic, I mean, it's been like 95% video that I've been watching my team. It's not the best. Live is the best, but you do get some good stuff on video as well.
Yeah.
I've had a chance to go to a bunch of the Leaf games here because they've allowed us to do so. And so I've probably seen at least 10 Leaf games, this winter. But yeah, it's been primarily video work. And, the playoffs obviously started yesterday. And yeah, I'm just watching our the teams I'm responsible for, and now some unrestricted free agents that we're looking at. And the beauty of, doing the TV stuff, I mean, I could upload that game and have it right after the game, and I could do individual shifts. So if I'm watching, say, Ryan Nugent Hopkins, for instance, right now is an unrestricted free agent. And, when they play this coming week against Winnipeg, I mean, I'll watch the game, but I can watch his shifts one after another. So in 18 minutes, I can get a real sense of what his game was like that night instead of having to spend 2.5 hours. But tonight, because Florida and Tampa Bay play, they're of the old Atlantic division, but they're still playing against one another. And, that'll be sitting in my lazy boy, focusing on my teams that I've watched a lot this year. So there isn't a lot that's going to change from what we've observed, but some of the newer players, for instance, David Savard has come over from Columbus to Tampa. He's an unrestricted free agent. Brandon Montour went from Buffalo to Florida. So there are guys to watch in addition to the rest of the players that I've got a good handle on from this year.
That's good.
Nice.
That's great. Listen, we want to end. Some of our listeners write us and ask us some questions. So we wanted to take a few. We got 3 questions and we'll end with that. And we got a question here from, let me just see who the question's from. This is from Jason who lives in Belleville. And he wrote in and wanted to know what influenced this hairdo. And he put that in. So
Jason had just
from Belleville. I don't know his last name.
Jason from Belleville. Huh? I wonder who that might be. Eh? Well, so do you want me to get into that? That was the second perm, by the way. That was the second perm with Rangers. My first perm was in Detroit. Reed Larson and I said, he said to me, let's go get our hair permed. And I'm a rookie. He's the veteran. He's the captain. He asked me to go get my hair permed with him. So like every good rookie, I did that. Okay. Hey, all I can say, Jason from Belleville, is, you know what? Like, change it up once in a while.
Oh, there it is.
Change it up once in a while.
Okay, Bob, you got a question, I think, from a listener too.
Yeah, from Paul in Toronto. When you were a player coach and playing in Cleveland, you had an interaction with Chris McSorley. Can you recall what happened?
Oh, wow. Isn't it interesting? Eh? These guys from Toronto. Well, I think I happen to know who that listener might be. But, okay, so I'm at the end of my playing career. I went down to the minors and played in Cleveland after the NHL. Cleveland's now the Lake Erie Monsters. They're the farm team for Columbus. But Vegas had hockey back then in the old International Hockey League. And you're right, Chris McSorley, brother of Marty McSorley, was behind the bench in Vegas, and they had a very tough team. And Chris McSorley was really a noted tough guy while he played, but his team was really tough, and they were kind of gooning us up a little bit. And while on a power play, they were on the power play, they pick a fight with our tough guy who's killing the penalty so that they can get him in the box. So now we're down to not very many defense, having to kill penalties, right? And that just infuriated me. And as I was going up and down the ice while killing the penalty, I can hear McSorley yelling from the bench at me. And I was kind of hacking and whacking some of his players, and I was really frustrated. Well, I got the puck in the neutral zone, and instead of just, dumping it in while shorthanded, I knew the bench was over here, and I did a Ralph Backstrom backhand. Okay, I hit him square in the chest. So instead of icing it, I came along this way, and I got. I mean, that could have been the best backhand of my career. I hit him square in the chest, and then all mayhem broke out after that. Wow. I got kicked out of the game, and that was one of my fondest memories for sure.
That's good. And we have one more question.
Yeah, I've got one here. It's from a Lori. I don't know if it's a guy or a girl, but a Lori in Ottawa that just wants to know if you yourself have ever owned a fur coat. So that's the question from Lori in Ottawa. So
yeah, well, Lori in Ottawa, if you would have lent me that fur coat after I got traded to Winnipeg, I think I really would have appreciated it. But no, I would have never have ever stooped to that that low and put one of those things on. So
that's too funny. Listen, we want to thank you for joining us. I want to end with one question though. In this whole pandemic and all of COVID, what has God taught you through COVID?
Oh wow, that's a real good one, because I mean, one of the things I think that we're dealing 400 plus days in all of this, and I've really found it more challenging the last number of months, and especially since Mr. Ford is not allowing us to golf.
I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
He's really taught me to just really respect your leadership, regardless of the decisions they make or not. But no, I think it's just been focusing on all the things that you're thankful for, in spite of having to deal through all that we've had to do without the normal aspects of life that we've taken for granted. I think we have it still very good here in our country, right? We're freedoms, we're healthy, we're safe. We can make the most of our time with our families at home. I mean, I've never spent this much time with my wife in 33 years of marriage.
You still like each other, right?
Yeah, she still likes me, which is an amazing thing. So, but I think it's just that one verse that I've really tried to, when the new year started in our small group, we're all trying to pick a word that we might be able to apply, and it was abide for me, from John 15, where it says, if you abide in me and I abide in you, you will bear much fruit. And so that's what I've been trying to do. I can't say that it's been, fantastic each step of the way, but, it's still a goal to say, Lord, you're in control, you're good. However you can, use me for good, and to, keep my eyes focused on you. That's, been part of the challenge during this pandemic. So
that's good. That's good.
What? Did we just become best friends? Yup. You want to go do karate in the garage? Yup.
We want to thank Mark Osborne for joining us on the show tonight. Mark, it's been a privilege to have you on here and to hear your story. And we know you got to work because you got to go watch the game, don't you?
Yeah, I have to watch the game, but it's called PVR, Bruce.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. I was able to get you to buy it anyways, and I got to go at 7:30.
Yeah, that's right. You said it's I got to get out of here right off the bat. Well, thanks for tuning in. And for the Edge of Tomfoolery, my name is Bruce Mackey.
I'm Bob Morris.
And I'm Steve Height.
Our guest has been Mark Osborne. Mark, thanks for joining us.
Okay, guys, it's been a pleasure. Thanks. I appreciate what you guys do.